Obstacles faced by women psychologists in the 1800s. The history of psychology was dominated by men. Women psychologists had to face many hardships and obstacles, such as enrolling in universities and colleges, obtaining their PhDs, becoming a member of the Scientific Society, the American Psychological Association, the APA, attending research meetings such as Titchener's Experimentalist, publishing books and journals under their full names, and marriage caused problems as well. These are the few women psychologists and their stories of how they faced these obstacles. Mary Whiton Calkins was never formally enrolled at the Harvard University. Traditionally, women were not admitted to universities or colleges. In 1890, William James welcomed her to his seminars. A year later, she worked with Hugo Munsterberg. She impressed both of them, and they tried to help her obtain her PhD by informally administering an examination, where William James described it as the most brilliant examination for a PhD that we ever had at Harvard. Despite their efforts, Harvard refused to grant a degree to a woman. She later on became a professor at Wellesley College, where she established a psychological laboratory where she did her memory research. In 1902, Harvard offered her a degree from Radcliffe College, which was an undergraduate women's college that was associated with Harvard. Mary refused, as she completed the graduate degree requirements at Harvard, not Radcliffe. Through the help of James McKeen Cattell, who nominated women to join the APA, because of his efforts, the APA was the first scientific society to admit women as members. In 1891, Mary Calkins and Christine Ladd Franklin were the first female members of the APA. In 1905, Mary Calkins was the first woman to be elected president of the APA. Similarly, Christine Ladd Franklin was denied her PhD degree at Johns Hopkins University because she was a woman. However, she had better luck than Mary, as she obtained her PhD degree in 1926. Before that, in 1912, she wrote to Titchener requesting for her participation in his Experimentalist, which was a group of psychologists who had regular meetings to discuss current research. Although Titchener continued to exclude women from experimentalist meetings, he supported their graduate studies in psychology. Margaret Floyd Washburn was the first woman out of the many women graduate students who completed their PhD degrees with Titchener. Not until 1929, 2 years later after Titchener's death, the Experimentalists became the Society of Experimental Psychologists. This new organization admitted women as members. Washburn was one of these members. Another obstacle was publishing in your full name. Lillian Moller Gilbreth and her husband Frank Gilbreth promoted the time and motion analysis to improve efficiency in job performance. She wrote her own book called The Psychology of Management, but publishers refused to put her full name on the book cover because a woman's name would decrease the book's credibility. She had to agree to use her initials LM instead of Lillian Moller. Even being married caused problems for women psychologists. For example, Letta Stella Hollingworth taught at a high school for 2 years at Nebraska, while her future husband, Harry Hollingworth, completed his PhD in psychology with James McKeen Cattell at Columbia University. Harry got a job as an assistant professor at Barnard College in New York City, but by law, married women were not allowed to teach in public schools. The reason why women had a hard time getting a higher education was there was a popular theory during that time, called the variability hypothesis, where males showed a wider range of variation in both their physical and mental abilities than compared to females, and that females were relatively average. Others took this notion and believed that educating women would take away their maternal urges to have children and cause physical and emotional damage, and their menstrual cycles would affect their physical and mental performance. Both Letta Hollingworth and Helen Thompson Woodley conducted lots of empirical research that disagreed with this notion. Letta found in her results that there was no relationship between the menstrual cycle and the decrease in performance in the motor skills and intellectual abilities. Helen's results showed there was no difference in emotional functioning between the genders, and there was only a small difference in mental abilities. However, her data revealed that women were slightly superior to men in abilities such as memory and sensory perception. She published her results in The Mental Traits of Sex, an experimental investigation of the normal mind in men and women. Her conclusions were not well received by male psychologists. Stanley Hall criticized her that she interpreted her data in a female perspective, which biased the results. Even though they were criticized, both Letta and Helen continued to support women's rights and mentor future female psychologists. Throughout the history of psychology, we've seen many challenges that women psychologists faced during their time, but they have made a clearer path for today's female psychologists in the field of psychology. For more information, refer to the following sources. Thank you for watching.